Welcome to the Agents of Fandom podcast. I am your host, TJ Zwarich, and I am still wiping the tears from my face from maybe I'm burying the lead, but from the best Marvel TV episode we have ever viewed. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Garrett. Garrett, I know you agree with me. How are you doing?
It was tough for me to have a good mindset today to go throughout the day because I watched it in the morning, like before work, and it affected me all day. Like the only thing I could think about was I can't wait to talk about this in depth as we record later tonight. And speaking of work, we are joined today by my coworker Julia Skeggs, host of the Weighted Blanket Happy Hour, co-host of the Weighted Blanket Happy Hour podcast. Julia, how are you doing?
It is great to see you again, and explains a lot for your work today. I'm not gonna lie. I'm kidding.
Oh, that hurts.
I love that you're coming in with the hammer after Garrett off air is like, oh yeah, I'm really excited to have Julia on. You know, at work she's my teacher, you know, she's my mentor. I wouldn't be doing as well without her. And then you just come in and just absolutely bring the hammer down on them. You're going to fit in very well. I love it.
Yeah, you got to love it.
I am a fan of the tough love philosophy. I don't really know what I'm doing.
Well, she does a good job of pretending.
Thanks. Yes.
And that's something we're getting pretty good at too, is pretending we know what we're talking about. So we are excited to dive into the podcast today as my dogs are barking in the background. Hopefully they'll stop soon. I'm in a bigger house and I still can't get away from them now. But some programming reminders before we start. On Tuesday, we are recording this on a Wednesday. It's dropping tomorrow on Thursday when the listeners are hearing this. But on Tuesday next week, we are dropping our Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness primer. We will be joined for the first time from the fan. Words are hard. We will be joined for the first time by a fan of the podcast, someone I met in the Phase Zero podcast Twitch chat, my friend Damon. You will maybe recognize him on Twitter, Damon Tweets. And he's one of the biggest comic heads I know. And so he's going to be prepping us with some required reading for the film. Not necessarily you will have to read this to understand parts of the film, but more so if you're a fan of these characters, here's what you want to read. If you're a fan of Doctor Strange, if you're a fan of Wanda Maximoff, if you're a fan of America Chavez, he'll have the best reading list for you to dive into those characters. So we're really excited to have him on, and we're going to have that coming next week. Make sure you follow the Agents of Fandom on all of the socials. We're Agents of Fandom everywhere except Twitter. You can find us at Agents Fandom. And our giveaway is still running. All you have to do is go to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating and write a nice review, and you will be entered to win our pal, former guest, Anthony Francisco, former Marvel Studios artist, his new book, Uber Monsters. Not only does it have his new art in it, but it also has all of his Marvel Studios concept art from the Thor movies, from the Doctor Strange movies, Black Panther, Guardians of the Galaxy, all of it. This is the man who created Baby Groot. He's the one who drew it. And so he drew a nice hand-drawn Baby Groot with his autograph in it. And all you got to do to win is head over to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating and review. Whew. That's it for the plugs. Let's talk some MCU news before we dive into this awesome episode of Moon Knight. So it's been CinemaCon over the weekend, and our man Ruben has been on the beat. He's been keeping the people updated live on the Agents of Fandom Twitter with what's going on. And it's a good week for cons, because this weekend I'm going to a con in Saskatoon as well, the Sask Expo. And I'm going to be meeting up with Kat McNamara from Arrow. She played Mia Queen. So I picked up myself some first appearance of Mia Queen comics that I'm hopefully going to get her to sign. It's going to be awesome. But Ruben was on the beat for CinemaCon. And one of the surprise things that was announced was a new film from Sony, El Muerto. I can't even really call him a Spider-Man character, because he's only ever appeared in 2 comics. But our man Ruben did some research on him. He picked up a backstory. So Ruben, I want to bring you in. Tell us what you know about El Muerto.
Yeah, man, El Muerto is a pretty small character in the Spider-Man universe. He first appeared in Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Comic 6 all the way back in 2006. And so he hasn't really been used much. He's only been in 2 comics, like you said. But yeah, El Muerto comes from a long line of wrestlers from this family. With that tradition comes this powerful mask that gives you this type of super strength, and that's ultimately what revolves around the character, the family, and kind of like the legacy he has to protect. It's a pretty simple backstory. You know, he's a trained fighter. A day comes where he has to protect his family name by facing this dude, El Dorado, which is kind of like the rivalry of the family. But ultimately he kind of refuses. He's kind of being a coward about it, which kind of leads to his dad having to sacrifice himself to protect him, and he ends up dying. And El Dorado pretty much sets up this match that's going to happen in 10 years. He pretty much told El Muerto to find the courage to face him and do the traditional rivalry match.
And so I think that is really what happened. Is they apparently saw him in Bullet Train and they loved his performance that he gave in Bullet Train. And so Bad Bunny is the 3rd highest streaming artist in the world right now, behind Ed Sheeran and Drake. And so I think they kind of viewed an opportunity to capitalize on his stardom. And that was what happened, Garrett. Reportedly was they pitched to him like, what do you want to do? And he came back to them with, I want to do this character. And so it's going to be interesting with how they bring in, if they bring in Spider-Man or not, probably not. But I think the benefit of doing a character like this that literally no one in the world knows about is you can do something brand new. It's not really an IP film like it is because it's attached to Spider-Man kind of, but you can do something brand new. And so I definitely think that could be a bonus. Obviously, we've seen some phenomenal animated content from Spider-Man universe, not so much live action from Sony. The last thing before we talk about some more Spider-Man Sony news, something I want to talk to you about, Ruben, just because we talked about representation a lot on this show, and Marvel's kind of had a lot of criticisms lately with America Chavez. The character comes from Puerto Rican descent. That's where, or not kind of, she's from a utopian parallel universe, but she's portrayed as Puerto Rican. And they have a Mexican actress who's playing her. Bad Bunny is Puerto Rican, and now he's going to be playing a Mexican character. Marvel's been criticized a little bit for basically casting Latinx characters just under the view of exactly that, Latinx, and not really refining it based on where people are from. Is that something that bothers you as well? Or are you more of the mindset of you're just really excited to start seeing these characters come to light on the big screen?
Yeah, man, I really don't think it's an issue. I feel like there's already a lot of examples in the MCU. Tom Holland, he's a British actor and he's playing a New Yorker. Oscar Isaac is Guatemalan and he's playing such a unique character in Moon Knight. So yeah, seeing a Puerto Rican portray a Mexican, or like you said with American Chavez, a Mexican portraying a Puerto Rican, I have no issues as long as they do justice to the character, respect the culture, respect their background, and really give the character justice. If the actor does a great job, I'm all for it, man. If it brings a better movie, I'm all for it because I love seeing representation in the big screen. So just to have El Muerto as a movie, man, it's pretty freaking awesome for people who look like me.
I think that was very well said. And some more news that came from Sony over the weekend was an update on the recently delayed Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and newly titled Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, the 3rd film. The 2nd film is apparently going to be featuring 240 different characters across the multiverse of Spider-Man. And it has over 1,000 people working on this animation. I want to bring you in, Julia, because we haven't talked to you in a while here since the intro. Have you seen have you seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and how hyped are you for this second one?
I am very hyped about it. I have loved every version of Spider-Man from Tobey Maguire to recent. And I love that they are using something like the multiverse to open up the idea that different people, different bodies, different types can play Spider-Man. I'm here for it. I enjoy it. I love it.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. And we get more Oscar Isaac, who we're going to talk about in full when we're talking about Moon Knight. But obviously, Spider-Man 2099, his character is one we're excited to see. And I think from the CinemaCon stuff, there was some Issa Rae playing Jessica Drew, a pregnant Jessica Drew in the first fight scene with Miguel and Spider-Gwen. So it's going to be a chaotic film. And yes, it's unfortunate it's delayed, but we saw the epic film they gave us with the first one. And so I'm totally okay with them taking the extra time to make sure they get this one right as well. Garrett, how hyped are you for this movie?
I mean, I love the first one, so I was obviously hyped when they initially announced that this was going to be like a 2-part sequel. But hearing that they have 1,000 people working on this movie is like an astronomical number to me. Like, that's so wild. So just hearing that, I know that the scope of this movie is going to be incredible. And I know I'm so okay with them delaying it. Like I say with video games all the time, I would much rather wait a little bit longer and have a completely finished product with love, with detail. That's not everything polished, and we've seen in the past things get released due to timing schedules and they're not done. And people see that and they care. And so I'm totally okay with waiting the extra bit, especially knowing how many people are involved with this project. And I'm sure that it's going to be shown a lot of love, and I can't wait for the finished product.
Yeah, same with me. And I'm going to kind of brush and rip through the rest of this news here from CinemaCon, because obviously we have a lot of Moon Knight to talk about. And something from the Marvel presentation this morning, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, they showed a little bit of footage, and it was confirmed that movie will in fact be coming out in November still. And some footage was shown of Okoye, of Shuri, of Nakia, all on the front lines ready to do some battle. So that's going to be exciting to see. And Kevin Feige said that in his planning a retreat with some staff right now, an in-person retreat where they are going to discuss the layout of the next 10 years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So we know that Kevin's got a plan, and that's exciting to know that they're already figuring all of this out. And something that our man, Daniel RPK, dropped on his Patreon today that was very interesting for us Charlie Cox fans is he's going to be filming scenes in Atlanta for the Echo series that's going to be coming to Disney Plus in the future. So we are very excited to get some more Daredevil in the MCU. And finally, there's a lot of Werewolf by Night Halloween special rumors circulating around. Elsa Bloodstone has reportedly been cast, and Midnight Sun's character fans will be excited about that. And another one from our friends at the Cosmic Circus today are reporting that Man-Thing will be appearing in the Halloween special. So I don't really think this Werewolf by Night is going to be a one-off type thing, because Elsa Bloodstone is a member of the Midnight Suns, and she has had in comics relations to Werewolf by Night. Man-Thing is a character a lot of people like. And Garrett, I want to throw this to you quick, because I know you're a horror guy. How excited are you for Marvel to just dive into the monster realm and where they can go with this?
I think that we're seeing with Moon Knight that they're willing now to get into some deeper themes, some darker story beats. And I think, and I hope that they lean into that with this series. What I'm so interested about is we're getting all this information from these outlets and still like no official confirmation from Marvel yet. And there's been many like chances where they could have said like, hey, by the way, this is coming out in October, which we know it is. And yet they haven't. And so that kind of shocks me. Julia, have you heard about this series at all? And no, so you haven't. So would this kind of thing excite you? Like a werewolf, like Dracula, vampire. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, heck yeah. Yeah, I think that's I think that that the horror genre has had a huge shift from being campy and cheesy to dark and diving into those themes that you were just talking about, Garrett. So the idea that they could have that kind of a budget that we've been seeing with these action movies. And I'd love to see where it can go. I'd pay to see it. Take my money. Just take it.
It's gonna be on Disney Plus, so
yeah, I'm already paid for it.
Exactly.
And I think we are going to and so it's Untitled. We know it's going to be about Werewolf by Night. It's Halloween special, but it's still Untitled. I think we get our answer to what it's called next week. And I think it's going to be Moon Knight will return in Werewolf by Night. And so on that note, I think it's time to talk some Moon Knight, because that's actually the last thing I have on this rundown is where do we think we could see him next? And I think that's going to be the answer. And if not finding out about Werewolf by Night and Moon Knight, I think maybe it could be in Doctor Strange. So I think that's coming very soon. And let's dive into it. If you haven't seen Moon Knight yet, now is your time to press pause on the podcast. Go watch it and come back to us, because like we mentioned, best Marvel TV episode. I think so. Garrett thinks so. Where are you at, Julia? Are you on the same page?
Oh yeah, 100%. WandaVision came out and it was like, this is it. This is peak. Anything that came after Loki was pretty fun, but WandaVision, just in terms of doing something different, not just for superheroes, but just for a series. And now Moon Knight, it's like, it's part superhero, it's part Indiana Jones. It's dealing with some real feels. It's just, it's just getting a chance to stare at Oscar Isaac, just be a boss as an actor. It is just chef's kiss.
The scenes he's doing right now are just like truly, I hope he wins an Emmy, because this is truly some of the top tier acting we've seen in the MCU. Like the stuff he's giving with Steven to Mark and back and forth, it's absolutely unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
It's some of the best acting I've ever, dare I say it, I've ever seen in my life. Like, it astounds me how much I care about these people, and I look at him staring at himself, and I know obviously he's not really staring at himself in real life, but you would never be able to tell ever. It's incredible the work that he's doing with this series, and you can tell it's a labor of love. We've heard that he put a lot of work into it. Beforehand, he would rehearse with his brother and say the lines as his brother would be one of the personalities. And he did obviously a lot of work on the research into the accent for Stephen Grant. So you can definitely tell that this is a labor of love for him, and it absolutely translates into what we're seeing every week.
Big time. And I agree with you. And that's why I don't really get the people who kind of think Moon Knight is going to be finished after this, the last episode. It's still being called a limited series. I get that, but I feel like there's definitely going to be a season 2, or we're seeing him throughout other places of the MCU, and then in another series. This isn't the last we're going to see of Oscar Isaac as Moon Knight.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
And you touched on WandaVision, Julia, and one of the parts I really liked about this comparison between Moon Knight and WandaVision is, even though they're so totally different, WandaVision kept viewers on the edge of our seats in a way that no other show has. It's like, what's going on? The part about Moon Knight that I find different and I'm enjoying so much is so much of the WandaVision edge was, Mephisto, aerospace engineer, what's going on? Does that mean this? In Moon Knight, we are just locked into the story. And so when you hear something like the reference to ancestral plane that we saw in Wakanda from Black Panther, it goes, oh yeah, I forgot this is in the MCU. And when they bring up Madripoor from episodes past, there are so few connections that it's so easy to get lost in the story. And it's really fun. This episode finds us with Mark talking to Dr. Harrow in a psych ward in Chicago. And it's interesting because it picks us right up from the bit at the end of episode 4, that cliffhanger of, is this real? Is this not real? Julia, Garrett mentioned to me that you're from Chicago. What was it like to get this little tiny piece of Chicagoan representation?
It just completely clicked. When I saw the Cubs swag in his bedroom, and then I'm hearing Mark talk in that beautiful Chicago accent, and I'm like, oh, that's why I like him so much, because these are my people. And then you hear him when he's on the phone with his quote unquote mom, and he mentions I'm on Milwaukee. Where's Milwaukee? And I'm like, oh my God, he's on the West Side. like, I was texting Garrett. I'm like, I love the Disneyfication of a Chicago neighborhood. Like, I want to pay big money to go live in that neighborhood. It did me proud. And I'm just like, I want more Chicago in these shows. I don't know if we'll get it, but it was very exciting to see.
Are you a New Girl fan?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's my favorite show of all time. And so like every time I hear somebody talk about Chicago, I just picture Nick and Winston having a conversation about it. And I'm just sitting there in my head like, I've never been to Chicago before. I'm Canadian, but I'm sitting there in my head like, Chicago.
Yeah. We're good people. We're good people. I'm pretty sure Garrett's like jealous because most of the people a lot of our people on our team, the cool people on our team, are from Chicago. So
people are either from Toronto or Chicago, and then like everyone gets off work like 2 or 3 hours before me, and I'll just be like, working into the night, and then I'll wake up in the morning, and then like so much work has happened before I even start that it's just, and I always feel left out. But Julia does a great job of always looping me in on everything and making me feel filled in and teaching me everything. So we love that. But yeah, I didn't even catch any of like these references throughout the show. And so when she texted me this morning, like I loved like all the Chicago references. I was like, oh, I didn't see the Cubs stuff. I didn't recognize the accent. I did hear him say Milwaukee Avenue, but like, I feel like that, it could have been anywhere. I don't know. That's not relevant to me because I'm not from there. But for you, you're like, I know exactly where that is. So it obviously strikes a chord with you. So I loved that you pointed that out to me.
And so this is like on the same kind of conversation we had earlier with Ruben, and just on representation and it being done the right way. We finally saw a lot more into Mark's backstory and his Jewish heritage in this one. And it's really been being received with mixed messages. And so I don't want to go into it too much, even because, again, this is a conversation I'd way rather have when we have Rich on the pod where he can talk about it. And I think that's something that we're kind of seeing in this show too, that exact same thing where, yes, they're still focusing on touching on the Jewish representation and Mark's backstory. There are some in the Jewish community that I've heard from. And so I don't want to speak for everyone, but on both sides that, yes, I'm so happy this came. And on the other side of, well, in the comics, his dad was a rabbi and this happened and this happened. And they really shied away from that. And I think the reason that they did, and maybe this will get touched on more, hopefully it gets touched on more, but the focus really on this show has been on the DID and has been on the Egyptian culture aspect of the show. And when the creators of the show are Egyptian, I think that makes sense that they're speaking to what they know. They're speaking with their perspective and their voice. And that's what's being portrayed and focused on right now. And so to me, that does make sense because it's not like, while it's definitely important to be represented, Mark's Jewish heritage is only one part of that Moon Knight creator as well. The ones they are focusing on that the comics focus more so on as well are his DID and and the Egyptian aspect of Moon Knight. And so that's clearly what they've been focusing on. And maybe when we get Rich back in the future, that's going to be something that we can talk more on. But yeah, a couple Easter eggs I wanted to touch on that I caught. The ancestral plane, Wakanda, Towerette brought up how that place is beautiful. And I really like the quick explanation and important world building explanation we got in the MCU of there isn't one afterlife. The afterlife is based on strains of consciousness. And I think that made a lot of sense to why Mark and Steven were seeing Towerette and why we saw in Wakanda what their afterlife looks like. And some other cool ones ties back to episode 1. Obviously, these scales of justice, they're similar scales to the ones Amit was using. The boat that they were on is the same boat from Egyptian mythology that Stephen had in his fish tank with his goldfish. He had that boat in there, so that kind of ties back to the Dr. Harrow stuff of, are we sure this is real? Because that brings us back to, this boat traveling through the afterlife. Well, that's also a boat that he had in his aquarium. So I love the unreliable narrator stuff that they got going to us. And I believe one thing back to Chicago, I think the institute that they're in, the Putnam Institute, I believe that's a real place in Chicago Marvel comics. So I think that's a place that is going to be maybe referenced more in the future as well. Like Putnam Institute in Chicago is a real Marvel place. I got to make sure I clarify that. Not a real Chicago place, but a real Marvel Chicago place. So it's interesting what they did there. The last Easter egg I want to touch on. There was a mention of Bushman, as Bushman was the one that who betrayed everyone, wanted to see the ruins for himself, killed Layla's father, and tried to kill Mark. This is a common Moon Knight villain that is from comics. People were speculating if he'd be in season 1. We got the reference. This brings me back to the more Moon Knight in the future. I think that could be more of a season 2 villain. Now, we don't have any of our crazy comic book guests on, so we don't have any great Bushman backstory knowledge on right now, so that's okay. But based on all these Easter eggs I've talked on, I've been monologuing a lot today. Garrett, what did you think about all this stuff that's been going on and the wonderment of this episode? Like, there was so much going on between, is this real? We are in a psych ward, to crazy Egyptian mythology, we are going on boats through the afterlife.
I think that this episode really sums up like how incredible the writing in this show is. There are so many subtle things that have happened throughout the show that are hardly noticeable, and then all of a sudden they mean something. Like you said, the ship in the tank, I think that's a great thing. I think that's just a random thing for us viewers to see. I don't think that has any meaning like in world. But when he's in the museum in the first episode and there's that little girl and she sticks her gum inside the pyramid and she's like, there's nothing in there. Well, we find out there is something in there. It's where the gods hold the other stone versions of the other gods. And then she asks him like, you're not going to go through the field of reeds or whatever. And it directly foreshadows him, eventually not making it to the field of reeds. Stephen, he passes away in the sands. So I think that there's so many subtle things that are called back. The Towerette plushie in the museum in episode 1. I think the writing in the show is incredible. So hats off to the whole team behind the show, Mohammed Diab, the writers, everyone. They've really done an incredible job. Julia, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this also.
I really, all of those things. And also I'm, again, like when we talk about representation, and I am just loving the trend of superhero movies and action movies, like really fleshing out a character's not just emotional strife, but also like mental strife. And so getting into the dissociative identity disorder that Oscar Isaac's character is working with, the way that they beautifully, in my opinion, and again, like a person who, like, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a mental health expert. I just happen to have anxiety and depression and have a lot of opinions about it. But when we're talking about, children dealing with trauma and how it affects them, I thought that the show did a really great job with illustrating the result of that and how it goes into. And I'm excited for the conversations that are going to open up now, because that has been given a platform. Again, I'm not saying it's like the most accurate and correct, but just the fact that they did it and it is out there now for people to learn more about is a really great opportunity for everyone to learn more about their own mental health.
Exactly. And I think as we work to break the stigma and be able to talk about it, I think shows like this are so great for that. And this is something Garrett and I have talked about lots. We really appreciate how this show is viewing it from a lens of, it's not a clinical explanation of DID. It's a firsthand experience of, we're showing the trauma and the symptoms and him not knowing what's going on.
That's why I'm really happy that we're able to talk about it with Julia, because we kind of brushed over this at the beginning, only talking about our work relationship. But Julia is actually incredible for a number of reasons. Her podcast actually deals with mental health, and her friend discuss mental health issues very openly and are very forward about that stuff and encouraging. And I don't want to say too much, Julia, because this is your bag, and I'll let you explain it a little bit. But it's and you also are able to look at this from a lens of like as a professional actor, a former actor, and so it's such a nice blend of things that we're able to get on the show and a fan perspective too. So tell us just a bit about your podcast real quick.
Yeah. So I am a co-host for Weighted Blanket Happy Hour, a comedy podcast for anxiety. It came about in the pandemic. My friend Jackie and I were both in therapy, and I was like, what if we just had a podcast where you and I just, talked about shit like we always do, and I had so many friends who, would hear us talking about openly about our mental health and making jokes about it. As you do, as a defense mechanism, as a coping mechanism, and people being like, I do that too. Maybe I too should dig deeper into this because sometimes it's annoying. And so we have this podcast now, and it's been a really great outlet, like artistic outlet for us, and also a really great way just to get people to talk about their mental health more, to think differently about their mental health. A lot of times we call it mental illness or mental challenges. And I don't see it as that. My brain just works differently than somebody else's. And I just experience the world differently, and I have to care for it differently than somebody else. So yeah, it's been, it's a labor of love. And, the more that I have to learn about for it, the more that I'm seeing now in pop culture, almost embracing conversations about mental health and getting into it. And I think how wonderful is it? And when we had Garrett on, how great is it for the younger audience to see this and be like, oh, it's okay for me to talk nicer to myself. It's okay for me to be proud of myself. It's okay for me to forgive myself for something that I did when I was when he forgave himself, when he was when they were, oh my God, my brain is thinking too fast. But it wasn't your
fault, Mark.
Yes,
it wasn't your fault.
Yes, that part. Exactly. And it's clear that Mark has just been pushing this down. It's just a pressure cooker.
Mark.
Yeah. And he was, but how many experiences of that do we carry with ourselves as adults these days? I'm 6 years in therapy. My therapist still has to be like, Julia, you literally didn't know any better. You have to stop being hard on yourself.
And that's such a great point too, because from a psychological perspective, not only do we not know better, but that's the thing with trauma is when we're kids, our brain is like Play-Doh. It can constantly be molded and rechanged and remolded. And that's why it's so much easier for kids to learn different languages than it is for adults. When you're an adult, your brain is still like Play-Doh, but it's Play-Doh that's been out for a long time. It can be molded, but it's much harder. It's firm. You have to press it down and you have to work really hard to make those changes. And so trauma, it does physically alter your brain, whether it's the physiology of the chemicals and the hormones in it. It alters it. And so I think that was something too that so many of us with mental health issues can resonate with from this episode. Not only the strong parts of the forgiving yourself and the closure, but the negatives from his memories of dissociating into fantasy or dissociating into sci-fi, dissociating into story when you're in a shitty situation. And whether it's you're being yelled at or your circumstances are just something not good, you dissociate into that fantasy. You dive into cartoons or books or movies. I think that's somewhere we've all been, at least on this podcast. And it was definitely something that hit me very hard when I was watching it.
And I think a lot of us too, I think I don't want to 100% speak for everybody, but I think all of us are lucky enough to have some pretty supportive parents. And Mark didn't have that. Mark didn't have a mom to be like, hey, it sucks, but it's not your fault. You didn't do it on purpose. Right. And sorry. And instead his mom was like, I hate you, and went after him. And so there was not any, and his dad was his dad celebrated for him on his birthday, but we didn't see his dad going out of his way, you know, to do anything special or like goad his wife and be like, hey, you need to like, it's not his fault, right? So
that was one of the things that actually really resonated with me as well. And I think that's really common is his dad was trying. His dad was trying really hard, but even though maybe quality of life is higher now than it ever has been in the history of the world, it's not just that more people are talking about their mental health. The reason why more people in our generation struggle with mental health is technology zipped faster than our brains could. And so we were our brains as kids, when they were being molded, weren't equipped to deal with this globalization of constantly comparing ourselves to other people through social media. And it really has just exponentially enhanced the amount of people with mental health issues. And so where was I going with that?
If I can just piggyback on that, a huge part of it too is generational trauma. And you see this woman, his mother, who is very loving when his younger brother was alive, and she just completely deteriorates in her character. And you don't learn about what trauma was she disassociating from, what was she holding back from herself too. And I think that like with our generation now, I think we're all around the same age. And I don't know, but you know, like we have all of this technology available now. And all of these, like, you know, these talking heads on Instagram and TikTok talking about mental health and how like we could be doing better. And it's just such a great opportunity. And also, I don't know where I was going with this.
Double-edged sword, really.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for. It's a double-edged sword too, where, you know, like a lot of people are still uncomfortable talking about their feelings because they didn't grow up in an environment where you were allowed to talk about your feelings. You were allowed to admit to negative feelings. And so they want to turn that stuff away. They think that stuff is just hocus pocus. So again, having this show as a kind of a platform to say like, hey, like it's important to address these things.
Exactly. And I think you reminded me of what my train of thought of where I was going with that as well, is the dad was trying, but had no idea what he was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Not only with handling his wife's trauma and helping her through her difficult time of losing a son, but helping his son with his difficult time as well. He was doing his best, but he didn't know what he was supposed to be doing. And I think that's a common theme for parents of our generation is no matter how much they want to help, they don't know what to do with a 14-year-old who's having panic attacks and body dysmorphia and all of these other things going on. Like, what do you do? Because it's new, it's changed, it's developed over time. And so I really liked how they touched on that with his dad of like, yeah, I'm trying, but I still can't give you the help you need, which is so often the case with mental health.
And just to like be a complete like psychology nerd, it completely explains why when Mark abandoned Layla, he just disappeared without a trace. That is textbook 101 avoidant attachment behavior right there. And it makes sense with the trauma that he experienced as a child, like his not having a strong maternal presence available to him, and him just not wanting to cause any pain to Layla, instead of healthily communicating like, hey, I'm going through some shit. I think it's best you keep your distance. He just completely disappears.
The Egyptian god of vengeance is taking me over and wants to take you over too. My brain is splitting in different directions. I need some time.
Yeah, but if it wasn't for avoidant attachment, then we wouldn't really have a show. So
and this is why we have you on. I love that. That was a great diagnosis.
It was fantastic. But it also, I think too, although we didn't see the third personality in this episode, like all of us thought we were going to, and like something that I keep seeing on Twitter, I thought it when I was watching the episode, and I think everyone did, is when we were seeing those scales not be balanced and that fight scene going on, I was expecting to see that third personality bursting through that door, kicking some ass, helping to balance that scales. Now, we didn't see it. We're going to get into that more later, but I think it did lend itself to my previous theory of we saw how Stephen was created. It was avoidance, hiding, dissociating into a fantasy land of Dr. Stephen Grant from the movie Tomb Busters that he had looked at. Now, I think this third personality, the one that we see, ask somebody out, maybe in the first episode that we're still waiting to hear back from, that killed all those people that Mark said, Steven, what did you do? And he said, that wasn't me. And of course, the sarcophagus. We're still waiting for this. And so I feel like this is all lending itself to the theory that that persona creates itself based on either the thing that needs to be done that Mark isn't and Steven aren't comfortable doing, or their deepest desires that they're trying to keep in check. One of the two. I haven't really refined it, but I'm kind of viewing it as like the ego. If Mark is the original and kind of Steven's almost the id, and this third personality is kind of the ego. That's how I'm looking at it. And so I think we're going to see it in the 5th episode. I mean, honestly, at this point, I'm kind of hoping we don't. Like, I almost hope it's just 6th episode. Yeah, sorry. I'm kind of hoping we don't. Like, I hope it's like referenced of, oh yeah, there's another one. We're going to have to figure that out now, because otherwise that's just too many things to tie up. I think that's a loose end that kind of needs to be left open, because this story is really about Mark and Steven. And we saw that coming to a culmination in this episode. And we might as well talk about now that fight scene, because we were all expecting the hearts to be balanced with the third personality. Turns out the hearts were balanced by one being lost. And that's where the most of my tears came from. But I do actually have a bit of a theory on it. Julia, what was going through your mind, your body, your emotions when all of a sudden Steven was lost? And it came after such a hype part too, of him being like, I'm ready to do this.
Stepping up to the plate, man.
Yeah. He was like, if you can do it, then I can do it too. And it's like, yes, you can, buddy. And it was such an amazing win for him, and then resulted in like such a huge loss. And I'm still trying to like, what does it mean? Cause like Steven was such like the innocent, like child part of, the idealist, the dreamer of, like, he literally was like the, maybe who Mark wanted to be when he grew up. And so to lose that part of him, I'm like, so does that mean that like Mark is like being forced to let go of this coping mechanism? Is he, is that part that came about because he was trying to like get over the bad stuff, and that's why the hearts were balanced? Or is it just the fact that two personalities can't exist in one person, and if either of them had gone off the boat, then it would have been balanced, and it didn't matter which one it was? I don't know.
I have a pretty strong take, but I want to hear Garrett's thoughts first.
I mean, there's a lot of implications, right? Because it feels like how it was explained by Towerette was like, it's the souls that like get taken by the sand. So are we supposed to assume that like they're two souls? And how is he like creating another soul? TJ, this feels like it leads into your theory. So why don't you just take the reins?
Thank you. So I'm really viewing, maybe this is avoidance on my part, but I watched that and just really thought, no, Steven can't be dead. Steven can't be dead. Steven, you can't be dead. And so as I'm watching this, I really felt like Steven, when he was having that conversation with Dr. Harrow of, my mom is not dead. And when he was really avoiding that. And so maybe that's what this is. But how I took it after I really thought about it more and tried to deny that he was gone, was that heart was not balanced because he died. Because like you said, Garrett, there's not two souls. This is one person. And so he was balanced because of that dialogue that you mentioned, Julia. Steven realized finally something that Mark already knew and didn't want to admit to himself or Steven. We are not two different people. We are not two different parts. We are not two separate beings in the same body. We're two parts of the same whole. We are one person suffering from dissociative identity disorder, who, although we have different personalities, those personalities are part of one person. And when they came to that conclusion and Steven realized, I'm going to sacrifice myself for Mark because I can do that. If Mark can do it, I can do it. Mark is me. And that realization was actually what balanced the scales, not Mark falling or Steven falling off of the boat.
So it's what brought them together. in a sense versus it being two separate souls and losing an entire person. So that is interesting. We also know that Marvel too likes to make you think that someone died and they didn't. Classic.
I like that a lot, TJ. That's great.
Thank you.
It's very beautiful.
Thank you. So now that we're back teared up, one of the last Easter egg things that I want to touch on before we get into theories for the last episode, theories for where may we see Moon Knight next, will there be a post-credit scene, all that kind of stuff. The last one was we got a bit more backstory on Layla's dad. And one thing we saw, it was the first time we saw him and his death, and something that was around him was a little scarab. And we know that he calls Layla his little scarab, and it was a scarlet red scarf that he had around his neck. And so although maybe it kind of seems like my Layla's dad was a avatar of Khonshu theory might be done, although maybe not. There's a Marvel hero in comics by the name of the Scarlet Scarab. And the Scarlet Scarab is the protector of Egypt, defending his home from all foreign invasions. And so he's been a hero. He's been an anti-hero, basically, like he's been pitted as an anti-hero going up against Captain America and stuff like that. But it's very much he is there to defend Egypt. And what is his name? Abdul Faul. What's Layla's name? Layla Abdul Fayuli. I'm El Fayuli, sorry. And so it definitely seems like little scarab, Scarlet Scarab, they're playing some things there. And either her dad was a little bit more than just an archaeologist, or, and I think more likely based on the amazing fighting skills we've already seen Layla have, we're going to see a lot more Layla, and maybe she's going to be the Scarlet Scarab going forward.
It's just all in the details. It's just, this is why Marvel, in my opinion, is the best at what they do.
More Layla, more Layla, more Layla, more Layla, more Layla.
Layla!
Exactly. I love that. So that's a good catch, TJ.
Thank you. I'm all theoried out. I got all mine out in the air. They're all out into the world for people to either love, hate, agree with, make fun of me. I'm here for all of it. It boosts engagement. Garrett, what do you got anything else for us in terms of how this 6th episode may play out? You got any spicy post-credit scene ideas, or where do you think we're going to see Moon Knight next?
I'm still having to get over the fact that this episode definitively proved my theory about the third personality killing Layla's dad wrong. So I'm going to maybe hold off on any more theories to pad my ego a little bit. But I do think it's pretty safe to say, like, we know Blade has been introduced in the post-credit scene of Eternals. We know that there's a casting that's been had there in Mahershala Ali, which is incredible. I cannot wait to see what he does in that role. I think that is probably the smartest place to start. And if they meet up in Werewolf by Night, I'm not going to be disappointed by that.
I agree with you. How about you, Julia? What are you really hoping to see out of this last episode?
It would be great if Steven wasn't actually dead. I don't think that would go over. Now that I'm thinking about it, just like from a PR point of view, I don't know, like how the, mental health experts would say about like killing off, someone's personality. Probably wouldn't go over well. So I don't think that he's dead, or, I think that needs to be resolved differently than him getting, going over a boat. But I mean, I don't know. I think I'm really bad at theories. I'm just here for the ride. I'm like, oh, I hope so-and-so is okay and they get their shit figured out. And
I have a post-credit scene theory though.
Okay, take it away.
So my only qualm with the 5th episode is that it still left us with a lot to tie up in the 6th one. And it really feels like we should have 8 episodes, not 6. Like, my only qualm is that it was so great that I don't know. It kind of brings us back to the finale problem that I personally don't have with Marvel shows, but a lot of people do, of that the penultimate kicks ass, and then it kind of lets us down with nothing but a CGI fight in the fifth one, aside from Loki. Now, for a post-credit scene, I'm kind of thinking, and this would solve that problem a bit too, is we just got all the Steven and Mark character exploration. We aren't going to get a Jake in this episode. We are going to... Sorry, something just got thrown off there. We're going to get a Mark-centric with Layla's help. He's got Khonshu back. Moon Knight kicking ass, moving through stuff. Which, to be fair, would be very similar to a lot of finales where it's just like the big fight sequence. But I do think we need our Mark versus Harrow square off with Khonshu back in the Moon Knight suit. Now, I think it would make a lot of sense for a post-credit scene to essentially that be where Mark realizes Steven's still here. It was not, they're not two different people, and he didn't lose his soul. Steven's still here, and they're able to talk to each other. And at that point that they're talking to each other, the third voice comes in and they go, "What?" And the scene ends. That's my post-credit scene.
Yeah.
Banger.
Yeah. Yeah. I would troll Disney for renewal after that, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good one. And I think like, let's be honest, I love your post-credit theory of Gore the God Butcher coming in to like kick some Egyptian god ass before Thor Love and Thunder, so we can just kind of see a little bit of his might, and see Christian Bale doing his thing. As much as I love that, I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't either.
I think the Jake Lockley line is a much more logical theory, and I think that has a much higher percentage of being what actually happens. And I'm totally okay with like some post-credit scenes like miss to me. I don't think that would be a miss, and I would be totally here for it.
Yeah, I definitely, Gore is lowering on my list, not in terms of how much I love it, but likelihood. And I definitely think more likely would be Jake Lockley, third personality, and or basically round 2 of the Eternals post-credit scene, and we see or hear Marshall Ali like, "All right, Mark, it's time. I need you." Like something like that.
If
like,
they do that to us twice, though, with him off screen just talking, I'm going to be, that's cheeky, and it's going to tease me, but I'm going to be a little bit upset.
Yeah, I feel you, but I'd be excited. Yeah, as well.
Of course.
That's why it's called a tease.
It's true. And we're so, what's the word? Like, spoiled.
With how much we got coming.
They've given us like so much in the past, and now if it's like, if the post-credit scene doesn't meet our expectations, it's just an L, which is a bummer for them, but they set themselves up for failure by being so incredible in the first place. So let's just not backtrack on that.
Speaking of being spoiled with great content, we got a lot more coming for you as well. Like I mentioned, next week, Tuesday, will be our Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness primer, featuring the very first Fandom Comic Corner with our man Damon coming in to give us all of his recommendations and required readings, as well as we're going to be breaking down the final episode of Moon Knight next week. That will be coming out to you Thursday, just like all the regular podcasts. And in addition, if you're wondering what we're going to be doing next, it's already May coming up next week. And so as soon as Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is over, you don't have to worry. We're still going to be coming with you, given all of that Disney Plus content, reviewing each and every week of Obi-Wan Kenobi, which we obviously cannot wait for. If there's something Garrett was more excited for than Moon Knight, it might be Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I know he's excited for this one as well. Make sure you check out all the Agents of Fandom socials so that you can be kept up to date with all that. We have some fun stuff going on right now. I'm going to Sask Expo this weekend. So I'll be writing some pieces and taking some pictures and stuff like that from the expo. I'm going as Infinity War Thor one day, with Stormbreaker back here. I'm going to be bringing that with me there. And I don't have a wig, so I'm just going to spike the hair up a little bit. That's why I'm trying to grow this out. Even though it doesn't look good, I look like a 16-year-old boy going through puberty late. Like Garrett. Yeah, he doesn't have much better.
Me too.
And then day 2, I'm going as the Green Arrow. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. But before we get out of here, Julia, thank you so much for coming on. This has been an absolute blast, and remind the people of your podcast and where they can find you on socials if you want them to, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Super straightforward. Weighted Blanket Happy Hour. We're on Instagram, Facebook, anywhere you find podcasts, we're there. We actually did an episode with Garrett, which is going to be airing this Sunday evening. Yes, you finally get your time, Garrett. We had a really great time with him. And so, give us a follow, say hi. Thank you so much for getting to be on here and getting to nerd out and on both action heroes and psychology. It's just a dream.
We're definitely going to have to make it happen again in the future because that was a blast. Garrett, any closing words?
Julia, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a blast. Just for a little bit of context on what she said, their episodes come out on Sundays, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. And after we recorded, we record and then like Ruben is just a wizard. I don't know how he does it, but he gets out the next day. And so after we recorded, like when the Sunday came, I was like, ooh, can't wait to like listen to how I did. I was a little bit nervous. I wanted to hear how it came out. And it was like another episode. I was like, oh, okay, cool. They're like on the ball. I sent it to her. She's like, yeah, we have a couple in the bank, whatever. Next Sunday rolls around. It was the last Sunday. Another update about their podcast coming out. And it's like someone else. I'm like, I sent her a picture of it with someone saying pain in a GIF, and that kind of sums it up. So I'm so happy to hear that it's finally coming out. I can't wait to share it with the world. Everybody go listen to that podcast. It is hilarious. They do an incredible job bringing important issues to light and making it feel not so weighted, if you will. But thank you again for coming on. This has been a blast for me. And man, Moon Knight episode 5, you've said it a bunch of times, but I'm going to say it. That was the best episode of Marvel TV we've had yet. Hats off to everyone involved with that project. Oscar Isaac is acting his ass off, and I am so here for it. I can't wait till next week. And I'm stuck in this point where like next week can't get here soon enough, but I also don't want it to end. So what do I do? That's kind of my thoughts. So I can't wait to see how this finishes up.
That's how I feel too. But on Wednesday, I'm going to be watching the finale of Moon Knight. On Thursday, I'm going to be going to Doctor Strange, and we have Obi-Wan starting very soon after. So like you mentioned earlier, we are spoiled with content. If you want to be spoiled with even more content, head over to agentsoffandom.com. Our film expert, Ethan Simi, from 15 Minutes of Marvel and 24 Minutes of A24, wrote a awesome new piece on the state of the box office and the state of cinema right now. So go over and check that out. And we've also been having some amazing pieces, not only on the site, but on TikTok lately from Jaden, from Elijah, and from Layla. They've just absolutely been crushing it lately. So thank you to them. Check out agentsoffandom.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, like it. Help us combat the YouTube algorithm overlords. We need your help. That will do it for us today. We're excited for Moon Knight next week. We're excited for Doctor Strange. We hope you are too. Peace.
Peace.